Hello, everyone. Welcome to your restorative practice. We are going to have a lovely practice, and we'll focus mainly on, I'll stand up so you can see, hip flexors. And so hip flexors flex the thigh at the hip point, right? So here's our hip flexors in action. And since we sit a lot in this shape, whether we're driving or sitting at a desk, they don't get a lot of extension unless we're kind of, running or walking or practicing restorative yoga or yin yoga. So we'll work on lengthening the hip flexor. And just because of the nature of anatomy, the psoas muscles run right along that hip flexor, and we will work with the psoas, lengthening that as well. We'll do a little bit of adducting, lengthening work, so inner thigh adduction. But mostly we'll focus on the front of the hip complex, right? So you'll want all of your props, all the props you usually use, couch cushions, hardback books if you use them, maybe some extra blankets today, because I don't know about you all, but it is cold where I am. So hopefully you're staying safe and warm, and yeah, pile on all the cozies. So the first shape we will take will be a gentle back bend. So you can think bridge pose with a nice little lift underneath the back of the pelvis. And so when I say the pelvis, I'm going to turn around so you can see, I mean, not my lumbar spine, not my low back, but right below that is the base of the pelvis. Okay, so that's what we're going to aim to let our hips rest on when we elevate them on a prop. And so whatever you're gonna use for that, it could be hardback books wrapped in a blanket or a block if you have it. You could use couch cushions. You could use folded blankets. And if you're using a folded blanket, I like to make my folded blanket about the width of a block, similar width of a block, you can see. So fold that blanket up nice and small, like a little square. Have whatever you're going to use off to your side, and then go ahead and lay on the back. And we're just going to kind of signal to the pelvis that something is coming, especially because the lumbosacral joint, the place where the lumbar spine fuses with the sacrum, that joint, because it's so mobile, tends to get injured rather easily. So if you have a lot of low back pain, it might be that junction because of its mobility, and also because it's inherent weight bearing of the body. That mobility and the weight bearing can cause injury more easy than other stable places in the body. So all I'm doing here to start off is bending my knees, planting my feet. I'm laying down on my back, and I'm just starting to rock the pelvis forward and backward. So I'm leaning forward to the tip of the tailbone. You could like put your hands underneath the small of the back, so the small of the back is lifting away from the mat, and then I'm pressing the low back down as I curl the tailbone under. This is a really small movement. Okay, so my pelvis is staying in contact with the mat the whole time. I'm just rotating forward and backward with the pelvis. So the low back lifts and then the low back presses down. But think of it as a nice little massage for the sacrum. Very base of the spine. Let's do this a couple more times. Forward and backward. In anatomical terms, we call this an anterior tilt when the hip points lift, and a posterior tilt when the tailbone tucks under. So anterior means the front, posterior means the back. One more time through this range of motion. Just kind of check out how the low back feels today. Notice if there's any kind of achy or just kind of a weird sensation. Doesn't have to be pain per se. Just notice how it feels. And then relax. Let's take the feet wide on the mat and we'll just windshield wipe the knees right to left. Keep this super slow, super gentle. So we're just moving in a few different planes of motion to signal the pelvis that something's coming, and also to warm up the muscles that surround the pelvis. And namely, again, we're focusing today on the psoas or the iliopsoas. There's two muscles there. So one major muscle of the iliopsoas is the psoas itself, psoas major. And then the second minor muscle is the iliac. And they connect at the lumbar spine, they run through the inner pelvis and connect to the inner thighs. So that's the target area for today. One more time each side with the knees. And coming back through center, you're gonna press down through those feet, okay? And then you're gonna grab your prop of choice. Pressing down through the feet, lift the hips up, sliding that prop underneath the sacrum, which is below the low back. And if you're using something bigger like a bolster or a couch cushion, you're going to get support a little bit underneath the low back too. But make sure what I'm wanting you to make sure of is that the majority of your weight is centered in the sacrum, back of the pelvis, below the low back. And then just let your pelvis rest here, let it be heavy. Make any adjustments that you need. I like to kind of wiggle my shoulder blades underneath my back. I like to check out my neck. And find a comfortable position to rest your arms that might be stretched out to the side. Or maybe the hands rest at the rib cage and the belly if you want that contact. Physical touch is so powerful. It produces that connection hormone, oxytocin. So the feeling that we're loved and that we're connected, oxytocin, just by touching or being touched in a loving and safe way. And we can do this for ourselves, placing the hands somewhere on the body that feels good. Start to become aware of your breath. Start to find stillness. And if the low back is feeling really good today, you don't have any achy or pinchy sensation in the low back. One way to intensify this for the hip flexors and the psoas would be to extend the legs forward. And you could do it one leg at a time. So like right now I have my left leg extended forward. I'm relaxing that left heel on the ground and my right knee is remaining bent. You could do it one at a time. I'll let you know when we're about halfway. If the low back is feeling really good, you could try both legs stretching over your prop. Both legs extended, both heels relaxed on the mat. But that can be a lot. It can be a lot on the low back. So if you're feeling that crunchy, bend one knee at least, or bend both knees and just come back to that starting position. If you're still on that one side, let's take about 5 more breaths here. And then if you're doing one side at a time, go ahead, switch sides nice and slow. Come back to your starting position first, so both knees bend and feet plant, and then extend the opposite leg forward. So take it super slow. One side at a time is always welcome. If you have both legs extended forward and your low back starting to seize up on you, like if it's starting to feel really crunchy, it's starting to cause tension, then I recommend backing out. So really tuning in to the cues of the body. So important. Such an important lesson to learn in life. This is something that I highly encourage you to take off of your yoga mat and into your daily life. Take 5 more breaths here. If you're doing one side at a time, feel free to come back to that starting position whenever you're ready, though. If you still have one or both legs extended, start to bend the knees, plant both feet. And just take a few moments here with the knees bent, feet planted, the weight of the pelvis centered over your prop. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Little pressure into the feet. Gentle lift of the pelvis up. And when you lift your pelvis up, can you feel your tailbone slightly tuck under? Reverse uncurl the spine so it goes upper back, middle back, lower back, and then the pelvis and tailbone release very last. Pause here for a moment, walk your feet wide, let your knees knock in towards one another. That's helpful in creating space in the lumbosacral joint, low back. Let's take about 5 breaths here in silence. If you like to transition, you could first hug your knees into your chest, give yourself a little bit of a low back tissue massage. You can rock side to side. That might feel really nice. And then we're going to come up to a very brief seat so we can come forward and set up for a low lunge with props. So you might want to bring a blanket underneath the knees to set this up first if the knees are tender at all. And we'll start out in a tabletop shape. I highly recommend having some kind of props in front of you that you can rest your hands or your forearms or your elbows on. So maybe that's a stack of couch cushions or a chair or a stool, whatever you have at your disposal at home that can bear the weight of your upper body, please go ahead and grab that. Okay, so starting out in tabletop with your props in front of you, whatever you've got. Make space for your right foot to step forward. So I'm kind of scooting my props off to the side so I can step my right foot forward. I'm going outside of that prop because I'm using cushions. If you're using a chair, you might step your foot outside of that chair leg. Okay, and then I'm going to curl my left toes under, lift my left knee up. I'm going to make a little bit more space along that left leg and then set the knee back down, untuck the toes if you like. So now I should really feel this on the front of my left hip flexor, front of my left thigh, and iliopsoas. Okay, so stay up on your hands for first few moments, even if you're super bendy and flexible and you know you can get down in there and just kind of lounge. For most of us, this is pretty intense. So stay on your hands with me. Take about 3 breaths here. And I invite you to add a little bit of gentle movement. Maybe you rock side to side on that front foot. Maybe you let the knee fall out and in. It doesn't have to be a big movement, just a little bit of movement. Find your breath. It's perfectly acceptable and encouraged to stay up here on your hands. Okay, but if the body says, I want to go deeper, and the body, not the ego, but the body, then you could walk down to the forearms and elbows if you like. I've set us a timer here. We'll be in this for about 3 minutes. If you do come down to your forearms and elbows and you find that that is too much for you, remember you can always back out. You can always add more props. When I'm down in a low lunge like this in a restorative practice, I like to relax my head and I kind of move my head around side to side so I get a little bit of a passive stretch to the back of the neck and the shoulder blades. And that allows me to stay with the sensation in the hips, in the hip flexor, in the psoas, rather than starting to bunch up the tension in my neck and my jaw. Keep that relaxed, keep that fluid, keep it soft. That front foot, if you want, you can roll to the outer edge of that foot. The knee can turn out to the side. That might change the sensation across the front of the left hip flexor. So just notice. It kind of turns it into a different sensation. Not bad or good, not judging it, but just noticing, oh, that might feel a little different. For me, being able to target the hip flexor and the iliopsoas means I keep the sole of my right foot flat and the knee and the toes pointing straight forward. Let's take 5 more breaths here. Last breath. And then if you're down on forearms, start to make your way back up to your hands. Take it super slow. Back the hips up a little bit. And then you can send your right knee back in line with your left knee. And maybe just take a seat for a moment on your heels. Just take a moment to rest. If you want to move through cat-cow or come to down dog or something that adds a little bit more movement, feel free to do that. But just choose something wisely. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Recenter. Find something neutral. And then we'll come forward and we'll prepare the second side. So this time the left foot's going to step forward. If you're using props, you're going to scoot that out of the way so that you have space for the left foot to step forward outside of your props. I'm just scooching everything off to the right just a few inches. My left foot steps forward. It can still be on the mat. Bring my hands down. Remember, we're all bringing our hands down first before we even think about taking it further. Tuck those right toes under, lift the right knee, wiggle that foot back. If there's any more space and length you can create across that right thigh. Set the right knee back down, untuck the toes, and then add a little bit of movement here. We're still up on our hands. We're just adding a little bit of movement, rolling a little bit to the inner and outer edge of my left foot. Not a lot, it's not a huge movement. And so what I'm doing with this is I'm inviting blood flow and synovial fluid into the joints. I'm stimulating that blood flow and synovial fluid into the joints and the muscles. Muscles mainly blood flow, joints mainly synovial fluid. And so when that feels complete, you can start to walk down if you're going to deepen this at all, if it's wise to do so. Sometimes it's not wise. So again, using your best, wisest judgment, letting the ego take a back seat for today. Saying, thanks, ego, I hear you, but not helpful right now. So listen to the wisdom of the body. It's going to talk to you in terms of breath. Does the breath change? Does it become restricted or forced? And then where does the tension move? And can you relax in that place of intense sensation, but not pain, right? We're not looking for pain. So there's a difference between intense sensation and pain. And if you're down on your forearms and your elbows, maybe you relax your head, maybe you move your head side to side. Keep relaxing those shoulders, the neck, the jaw. Keep that sensation targeting hip flexor and iliopsoas. Keep steady with the breath. And if you want to, if you explored that knife edge of the front foot on the first side, you might do that. You can let that left knee move out to the side. You can be on the knife edge of that foot or the pinky edge of that foot. But notice how that changes the sensation in the right thigh, the front of the thigh. I'll take about 5 more breaths here. One more breath. And if you're down on forearms, start to gently walk your way back up to your hands. Just take a moment here, pause, pressing into the sole of that left foot, kind of engage that whole leg. Deep breath in. And then you can start to shift back. Left knee comes back in line with the right knee. You can take whatever you want. Maybe it's cat-cow. Maybe it's downward facing dog. Maybe it's just sitting back on your heels in Virasana, hero's pose for some stillness. Let's take a few breaths. Inhale, exhale. Okay, so we'll set up our last shape, and this will be nice and restorative and kind of put everything together. And this is when we'll start to look a little bit more at the adductors or inner thighs. And it's a shape that you could take right into your Shavasana if it feels really good for you. Supta Baddha Konasana. So maybe 1 or 2 couch cushions will be the support for the base of the spine. Well, not the base of the spine, but the majority of the spine. So back of the head, thoracic spine, and lower back. Hips and pelvis are going to stay on the mat. And so this cushion can be elevated like a recliner. You could place a book underneath the top of that cushion or a folded blanket, something to give the top part of that a little lift so that your head is higher than your heart. And then Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose. We're talking about the legs here, soles of the feet together, knees wide. I like to take a bolster or a rolled up blanket underneath the outer edges of the knees because it allows my legs to fall open towards gravity without too much tensioning on the joints of the hip flexors and the knees. And then I'll take a blanket and tuck it underneath the outer edges of my feet, making a little, kind of like a little sleeping bag for my feet, or pillowcase, whatever you want to call it. I tucked my feet in. And then I have the second blanket here I'm going to use to drape over my belly, add a little weight, really great for the parasympathetic nervous system. I kind of adjust my shoulders down my back as I lay back here. Make sure that whatever's underneath the back of my head, it feels good on my neck and my shoulders. So if it doesn't feel good, maybe you add more height underneath the back of your head. And then you can play with the arms here for a little bit, find a comfortable position to rest them. Sometimes I take a few snow angels. I'll kind of move my arms out to the side, up and overhead. Just feel that stretch across the pec major, pec minor, anterior shoulder. A few breaths and some dynamic movement if you like. And then start to settle into that stillness. And I'm going to stay here for our Shavasana, but I'll let you know when we're at the 1 minute left mark. If you'd like to extend out into a traditional Shavasana, that would be the time. Soften your elbows, relax your jaw. Can you send your breath deep into your belly? Remember that diaphragmatic breathing we've been practicing. Deep into the belly. So good for the organs of the heart and the lungs. About 1 minute left in our practice. If you'd like to take a more traditional shape for Shavasana, now would be the time. And if you're staying as you are, just start to resettle, deepen your relaxation. See if you can let go of any extra tension. Just soften, let it go, let it rest. Shavasana. Please feel free to stay longer if you have the time. If you need to move on with your day, begin to awaken the body slowly, starting with fingertips and toes. If you're still in your bound angle, you might stretch your legs out, you might reach your arms overhead. And take your time. When you're ready, you can start to roll off to a side fetal position for just a moment. Pressing out your hands, coming to an upright seat. We'll just take a few more moments to practice the diaphragmatic belly breath. We'll take 3 rounds. You could place your hands on your belly, maybe one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart, to really get that feedback. Breathing in, chest lifts, belly expands. Breathing out, let everything soften back into the spine. Try that twice more. Inhale. Whole front body expands. Exhale. Front body softens. One more time on your own. And then both hands, they might come to stack on top of the heart, bowing the chin into the chest, taking a moment here to honor your effort and your practice with reverence and gratitude. And to all of our teachers, past, present, future, and most importantly, to the teacher within your own heart. Namaste, yogis. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you enjoyed your practice. I hope you come back again soon. I hope you take some of this off of your mat and into the rest of your day. Take care.